Hello and welcome to This Week in Tutuca. I've been doing many things this week. The most user-facing is this eject button on every playground. When you click it, it will dynamically generate a zip file with the current state of the playground, and you can unzip it and continue developing in your machine. There's a README with instructions of how to use it. You just have to start a static server and develop from there. Another thing I did was llm.txt. It's a useful cheat sheet for you, but mostly it's useful for LLMs to understand what Tutuca is and how it works, mostly because there's no data in the training set about Tutuca. And also to help mostly LLMs, I created a CLI that allows you to run like many subcommands, but the most useful are lint, render examples, and doctor, which does a full check to see if everything makes sense in the code that it's generating, so that it can have a feedback loop to do development. Another thing I did was a web component example, showing how to integrate web components with Tutuca, which is nothing crazy. So here there's a toggle picker, emoji picker component, web component. And here I can create an instance and select one and react to the custom events. There's nothing to it, just in this case I import the emoji picker and it auto registers and I use it as a tag in the views. And this is also an example of how to use custom events, because here I am listening to the emoji click custom event from the emoji picker and reacting to it. You don't have to do anything, just register your web components, put them in the views and react to the custom events. Another thing I did was to work on the linter. I added many new checks. So here, for example, in the tutorial in common mistakes, I added examples and new lints. You can see now I have 20 messages here. The new ones are checks for unused computed properties, alters, and inputs. So if you have one defined here that is not used in any of the views in the component, it will tell you, hint you that it's defined but not referenced. Another one is that I now check Lint the string template placeholders. So if you have a string template somewhere and it has a placeholder, it will check. I will check that that's defined and that's valid. Also, now I check that if you call a macro, that the arguments you passed are defined by the macro. So if you pass an extra one, you make a typo, it will tell you that that argument is not defined. I also export a check function. That for the production build is a no-op, but for the development build, it will run the lint on load and log all the messages to the console. So you can, as you develop, you can see if there's an error warning just by looking at the console. On more advanced features, I now component memoization works with dynamic variables, and I also have a dynamic variable, dynamic binding example in the advanced section. Dynamic binding is, you may know it from some languages like Clojure or any Lisp, so most of the Lisps. It's a way to pass dynamically a binding through the call stack. Here it works the same. A component, an upper component can put a dynamic binding in the stack. In this case, we have this editor that can dynamically generate entries, and we have inside of it a component that is a select that expects somebody from app to pass the list of entries. So the app component in this case is entry editor and selector, and it defines dynamic binding called entries, and it says like when you put it in the stack, take it from the items field. And on stack enter, I say the dynamic bindings I register are entries. You can dynamically set different dynamic bindings depending on your state. You have access to this over here. I may rename these names, but idea is that you declare the dynamic bindings, all the ones that you expose, and on stack enter you say which ones you put in the stack. And the lower, let's say, component, in this case the selector, says I'm going to use a dynamic binding called entries. Locally is going to be called entries. It should be defined by this component and this name. So this is my name, this is the name it should be in the stack. And if it's not set, because this component may be somewhere else, or this component may decide not to register it for some reason, use by default the items in my field. It can be a field, it can be a method that returns some default value for the dynamic binding when it's not defined. It's pretty advanced, but it's a pattern that is pretty useful for more advanced usages. And in this way, like the selector component can work standalone, and it will use its own default. But if this binding is in the render stack, it will be used. So it allows you somebody up to optionally pass bindings down, and this now will be cached. So the rendering, as long as this doesn't change, this component will be cached, and not the re-render will be from the cache, because the dynamic bindings, one or more, will be the same value. And yeah, it's pretty advanced, but it's pretty useful. Also, I announced an advanced thing in the spec. Inside select there are a couple, and another tags there's a small set of tags that are valid. So if you want to put the special X tag over there, you can't, because their parser, the HTML parser, will filter them. There's a new pseudo X tag where you put for example, here, if I want to put an X tag, I can do like this. And because the XML parser will parse validly the option tag, but it will be replaced by an X tag in the node tree. It's also advanced, but if you want to put an X tag, for example, in the select, inside a select, that's the only way you can do it with the valid HTML parser. And another one that it's also advanced for development. I don't, when I create the minified build, I don't mangle the identifiers, the class names and the function names. So if you get a stack trace even in the production build, you will be able to read the identifier. It adds a little bit of size to the build, but I think it's nice to be able to read identifiers that make sense. So yeah, this was this week in Tutuca. In terms of features of the library, the dynamic binding memoization was the last remaining one. So now, from now on, is going to be polishing it and improving the CLI, improving the linter, improving the website, improving the tutorial, and so on, towards the 1.0 release.